And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Welcome to The Politics, Prepping, and Paranormal Podcast.
Flippity-jibbity nonsense.
I thought it was terrific.
Not just big, it's yeah.
Let's go.
Welcome to the Politics, Prepping, and Paranormal Podcast. My name is Jeff Morey, and I'm your host. Well, 2025 has been a crazy year, to say the least. So many developments in politics and pretty volatile time in our country, in my opinion. I'm going to do a review show next week where I'll not only review everything in politics that transpired in 2025, but also a look ahead and preview of 2026 and what I think we might expect. But this week, I'm excited to welcome back one of my favorite people and my very first two-time guest, the one and only Heidi Hollis. If you don't know Heidi, she is the host of her radio show, Dark Becomes Light, on Coast to Coast AM, as well as an author, TV star, cartoonist, ufologist, demonologist, and the very first person to write about, talk about, and trademark the entities known as Shadow People and Hatman. Heidi was writing about and talking about the paranormal long before it came mainstream through TV shows like Ghost Hunters, and she is one of the most sought after and respected experts in all things paranormal. We had an amazing conversation before, and I'm excited to welcome her back.
I don't even know how to describe that level of fear because it was this big hulking black mass.
When it comes to the theory that some of the beings that people are witnessing, like in the Rendlesham forest incident, that these are people from the future coming back to talk to us.
Welcome, Heidi. Thanks for coming back on my show.
Oh, but of course, I had such a good time last time, had to come back.
It's been a while since we last chatted. What are you up to these days?
Oh gosh, it's been a longer haul than expected to finish my newer book. I ended up actually splitting it in half and making it into two books. So yeah, getting involved in a couple other projects and doing my paranormal comic strip, The Outlanders, and yeah, having fun per usual.
Always busy, right?
Yes.
You are the world's leading expert on Hatman and Shadow People, and I know people are always reaching out to you and sharing their stories.
Yeah.
Are there any particular stories or people that you've talked to this year in particular that stood out that you can tell us about?
I unfortunately have received several parents being quite upset by the approach of Hatman coming at their child. And it's a touchy subject, of course, because it's like, why on earth would a child be met with the likes of the devil and terrorizing them to the point that, a child that used to sleep independently in their own room suddenly starts talking about a man in a hat threatening to take their soul. So I think those have been mounting up more than usual, and sadly, and it's been disturbing for a long time, and I'm just getting another wave of it, and I don't, there's no rhyme or reason fully to it, except that I was told many years ago when I was in college by these non-human beings, and myself and my college roommate were met with, gave all the information on what these things were, and how they would escalate to such a point that it is that I see now today, that they'll just be desperate and just jumping at everybody. And it's horrific. It's horrific to see. And you say world's leading expert. And I'm like, I hope so. I named it. So it's like, it's like, yeah, it's like there's people that'll say, well, of course I could tell you about the shadow people. It's like, but it's very personal. I gave up a lot for decades to make sure people got the message. And I want to be sure that they're approaching these things respectfully, carefully, and with the armor of God, quite literally, so that is so, you have to have it. It just, people trying to poke their finger in the eye of these things. I mean, it's nothing to play with. And, as big and bold and bad as some of these paranormal experts are, they come asking me, oh my God, I don't know what I did. This is coming at me full force. And I was told that would happen. Of course, these things will want to take you out if you're, doing the things that you really shouldn't be doing. I mean, you don't see me crawling around in a castle going, come at me, bro. I will not do that. It's like, I know what lives in the dark, and I know that, I can't stand up against these things on my own. I have to be certain about where I stand in my faith. And I'm not a huge Bible thumper. I'm not going around doing this and that. I'm flawed. I mess up. I get back up again. I don't have all the
human
answers.
being is.
Yeah, I don't have all the answers to anything. Anybody who says they do, run and hide from them. I'm just, I'm doing what I know I'm supposed to be doing. And I worry for others. I really worry for others who try to stand up to these things outside of what I understand. I've heard of other, quote, organizations that are specializing in these things, and they're stepping down one at a time because they're getting so severely attacked. And it's really sad. It's really sad. So,
what do you attribute this increase to? Is there world events or just things happening in our world and in our universe? What do you attribute the ramped up attacks and reports that you're getting to?
Well, I knew when COVID hit, that would be a huge spike in it, and it was. A lot of death, a lot of desperation, a lot of sickness, a lot of confusion, a lot of chaos, people losing their lives and their homes, their livelihoods. I mean, it was a really tough time, and that really ignited like a full-on assault on people's souls. It's not just physical, their souls. And those things don't shake loose very easily. And we're not that many years out from COVID and still floating around. So a lot of people still suffering from the side effects of that and other things connected to it. So I think that's a remnant that helped launch it off. But also, when I was in college and these beings were presented in a way that I was told that things would be escalating because we would be going through, I guess the best way to put it, I personally call a time of change, a time of shifting, understandings. And people are like, higher level of consciousness or Christ consciousness. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. That's very new agey. I don't know those words. All I know is there's a change. There's an understanding. There's a warning on the lips of many people in high places who are like talking about our time being limited. We're on borrowed time, and it's like whisper this, whisper that. And I don't know. I don't know what other people are aligning themselves to, what payroll they're on. There's a lot of people who you think are true and blue, but they're on a payroll. And there's just something that happens. This is what these beings had indicated to myself and college roommate, that this earth recycles itself. It's just a natural process that it does. There is a problem here. There's conflict in matters of alien contact. We say alien. I say it could be alien, demonic, angelic. There's a conflict. Their time is running short, the more negative ones. Their time is running short. They're acting up, acting a fool, and just letting their tail hang out when they usually would not, as they're getting more desperate. The more angelic side, Jesus encounters are going up through the roof in all sorts of places, especially within Muslim nations, which is really interesting. And it's not that Jesus shows up once to these people that practice the faith, and he'll come every night and say, look into me, learn about me. And there's several books on it. And I have friends that are Muslim. I'm like, is that really going on? Could you read some of these online forums and tell me if you're seeing that? And it is. It's happening. It is happening. So what's happening here? What is this conflict? it's coming more and more to the forefront. This whole conversation, I'm so happy to see when it comes to the alien UFO conversation that they're being more loose-lipped on this being a battle of spiritual elements, you know? I'm like, yeah, but for how many decades now? You made fun of people who talked about these things. You made them lose their jobs, their families, their minds. You played games, absolutely played games. And somebody like me stepping into the realm of UFO conferences for many years now, decades, I wasn't that welcome to talk about, do you know these aliens are angels and demons? Do you know this? And they're like, oh, poo poo. So we went out and we measured the crop circle. It was all nuts and bolts. And I'm like, these things are trying to take people's souls, you know? So that's why I called my first book The Secret War. And it was called The Heavens Speak of the Battle. But the new subtitle, I only have it as an ebook right now, which I have to get it back into print, but it does have a audiobook to it. It talks about a real alien war and shadow people. So it's just to kind of indicate what is happening. And I hear people kind of, I wrote the book in 97. I hear people like say little snippets here and there of very similar things that I'm like, my God, why didn't you have this more mainstream and more in conversational corners of the UFO field when, not just me was out there talking about this. It's like there are several others that these are not our friends, and the ones that are abducting people, experimenting on people. I'm very careful to say I respect people for what they believe to be true for themselves. I watch people suffer needlessly at the hands of these horrific beings, and I watch them transform into finding ways to deal with it, I guess you could say. So I don't want to make them feel horrible for feeling the way they do, where they don't want to victimize themselves with these beings. They're like, well, I'm working with them now. But the reality is they're very dark. They're very demonic. They enslave people, and they create people that monitor the others to be more accepting of the abuse that's going on with them during their abduction scenarios. So we're dealing with a force that has been working on this community of people in the field for a long time. The only people that have pushed the narrative to bring this up to the level of congressional hearings are experiencers, They're not going away. It's still happening. Contact is going on. And those people that are being contacted or abducted, we're getting death threats from our government, but then saying this stuff doesn't exist. It's like, come on. You're driving people mad, and you don't care as we're paying your bills, quite literally. So it so runs deep, and it's really sad. And I try to stick to what's most important, are helping individuals, and they'll literally save souls. And it sounds crazy, and I've again been talking about this for decades. The more positive alien beings say, when people get abducted and they're become environmentalists, want to save this planet, and it's like seems all positive. I was told that the only thing worth saving on this planet are the souls. The earth will recycle itself. All that other energy is being spent to be a distraction. You have to look at the matters of the soul. So,
well, with all this increased activity, I guess you could call it, do you think in your own mind that we're basically marching closer and closer towards the end of days as foretold in the book of Revelation? Because it certainly seems that way with everything that's going on.
Everybody is feeling that, and a lot of people are having dreams of that too. And that's, in the book of Revelations, that we will dream dreams of things. I'm not one to say that I know anything better than God would, because even Christ says nobody will know the day or the hour, right? Isn't that biblical? So I'm not going to guess. I'm not going to estimate. I'll tell you for myself, I always say time always feels short. I always feel like I have to get this done now. That I'm at risk of not completing this if I don't do this right now. And it's interesting. I'm more recently learning about saints. I'm not Catholic. So I'm just like, looking some of these people up, and they felt rushed as well. Like, got to do this now. This has got, and were things avoided because they had such a stark warning? I don't know, but we're still here, even though they felt like that tribulation was about to hit. And we're all feeling this now too. And it's like, are we going to avoid what's coming because we're all on such a high alert? Or, is this time, is it going to really hit? There's certainly a lot of things that are pointing to a culmination of a battle, because these dark things are here. They're here. They've always been here. But at this extent, from my understanding and from the warning I was told, and I'm not a psychic, I'm not a guru, it's like, but I'm just saying, I had an experience with a college roommate, and it was an ongoing one where we got some answers that we never would have expected, and it's held true all these years later. So, so I think a lot of people anticipate an end to like wipe the slate clean. But I'm more concerned with the people that don't get it quite yet, that might happen, and then we'll lose a lot of souls needlessly, people that are not aware and not awake. So,
yeah, and you talked about the armor of God, and I can personally attest to that being true. I had an experience myself when I was a late teenager, and like I said before, and I told you, praying to God, that's what I had an experience with a shadow person.
Yeah.
And it terrified me. I'll never forget it. It's one of the most terrifying things that ever happened in my life. And, I prayed to God, and it was gone. It was that simple. So, no matter what faith you practice, whatever your denomination is, just believe and trust in God. I think first and foremost, I think we both agree on that.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about some of the big developments this year and some things that happened. I want to get your input on 3i Atlas. There's been so much talk about this thing.
Yeah.
The NASA folks are trying to say that it's natural, and then you got other people, very renowned, well-known astronomers that are brilliant, that say this is not natural. Like, this thing that isn't acting normal. Nothing about this thing is a comet. I have a friend who I interviewed a little while back who's a remote viewer who tried to make contact with it, and she told me she didn't, I guess, make contact with it, but she said that she felt something there.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess right at this point, it's past its closest point to Earth. What are you hearing about 3i Atlas? I mean, what are your thoughts on that? And is it a comet? Is it a spaceship? I've heard everything from it's a draconian transport ship carrying draconian soldiers. It's a cryogenic status to it's it's a probe to. I've heard some wild theories about this thing. So what do you think? What are your thoughts on this?
I'll tell you, something that I was shown and told by these non-human beings some years ago, that I'll somehow be able to feel something coming. Like, and when I looked at this thing, and whenever I heard about it, I was just like, I'm not psychic again. I'm like, but I feel nothing. I don't know what this whole big thing is, and it felt like a dry run for something. Like, okay, let's practice how people are responding, and cue this guy, So it just felt really odd, and a big nothing burger. And now I've heard Avi Loeb has stepped forward to say, it looks like it's nothing. So I'm like, really, dude, you did the circuits? Just whatever. No, he's just a dude that's talking. That's all I see. I just don't, I just don't know. It's like, why? Why did you do that? Was he on a payroll? I don't know. I don't know. There's going to be those types, though. They used to hold street signs on, signs on street corners, and say the world's going to end. This is happening now. Now it's podcasts, and, showing up on different newscasts just to throw a theory of when things are going to happen and how screwed we are and when, so. Yeah.
I've heard that theory as well that you kind of mentioned, that maybe this is some kind of a dry run or a trial. A lot of people say that. In my personal opinion, I don't know what your thoughts are, but with COVID, that they wanted it was a social experiment. And I've heard the same thing about 3-Eye Atlas, is that they put this out there to see how maybe just plant the seed of something not human, extraterrestrial, and just see how we would respond. So I've heard so many theories around this thing. One thing's for sure, that was probably one of the most talked about things this year, that just polarizing, that I heard about nonstop.
Yeah.
I guess we probably will until it leaves our solar system. So
yeah, I'll tell you a fun fact. Probably a month, I want to say, like when COVID hit and it was like official, was all over the place, myself and a business partner, we'd written a script and done all this research. We're about to do a documentary over in Africa on vaccinations and pandemics. And then we're like 2 months away from flying out to go and make this thing when COVID hits. And we're like, what? Of course we had to cancel everything. It became obsolete. But yeah, fun fact. It's just crazy. Yeah. So it's like, I don't know. I don't know what makes the world go round always, and why, this is the snack of the season. Like, woohoo, everybody, look what we got going on. I have a hard time taking my eyes off the prize of souls. I really do. I do. I have a problem with it, with everything else, and I'm okay with that.
And that's perfectly okay. I'm going to run another one by you and see if you've heard this. I've been seeing a lot of chatter about this lately, and this is really off the rails. There's a lot of conspiracy theorists like me that are all of a sudden talking about leviathans lately. I've seen a lot of pictures of Google Earth images, specifically in the oceans just above Venezuela and in the Drake Passage below South America, where people are claiming to see images and imprints, I guess you can say, in the ocean floor of leviathans, and they claim that they are moving. It's even been suggested that the entire reason that the U.S. military is mobilizing in the Caribbean is that we're attacking a leviathan, not preparing to invade Venezuela. Have you seen or heard anything about this? It seems this is really gaining a lot of traction lately.
Oh boy. Okay, so well, no, it's believe it or not. Okay, I wrote this in the Secret War book again in 1997. The more positive alien beings that I should be clear. I keep saying positive alien beings. Some of the things they spoke to me and my friend about made me question and ask them, hold on. You guys are talking about so many things that make me think of angels. Are you telling me that you're angels? And all they said was, we've been called a lot of things throughout time. So that was one of the names. So these more angelic beings had said, and I put in the book, that the lake monsters and creatures that people are reported to see around the world, that is the beast, and they will surface during the times of cataclysmic things, apocalyptic things. And there's a reason why you're not able to necessarily spot them fully and capture them. And I'm like, wow, isn't that something? So this is the first I'm hearing about this Leviathan being seen, but this is something I wrote about. So it's kind of wild as things escalate in other areas that these are surfacing more and more, and that this is the rumor now. So not surprised.
I'll send you some links on some of that stuff. But if you look at some of the Google Earth images, I mean, I've got to admit, if you look at some of it, some of them look almost serpent-like or snake-like, like some of the land masses, the underwater land masses. I'll send you some links to some of that stuff. But this has really gained a lot of traction lately. So I didn't know if there's something you had heard about.
No, that's blowing my mind, because it's like another sign, because that's something they told me would be happening more. There goes another. Let's just check that one off there.
See if that one's on the 2026 bingo card, right?
Yeah, right. Like, wow. Oh, it's not looking good, Jeff.
I know. Speaking of disclosure and the government and aliens and everything we're talking about, this year we had the much anticipated film Age of Disclosure finally hit theaters. Have you seen it yourself, and what are your thoughts on Steven Spielberg's upcoming film Disclosure Day?
Okay, Jeff, I'll be honest with you. I did not see that film because there's going to be disclosure. It's not going to be in a film you pay $20 for. Since the first, people that stepped forward from our government that are going to give us all the answers, I was that person going, they're not going to tell us crap. and then people's telling me, but Heidi, be more optimistic. At least they're speaking on it. I said, oh, they're giving us cookie crumbs now, are they? Because they're just so kind and generous. They would never have done that out of the kindness of their heart. So I wasn't buying it then in the beginning, and I'm not buying it now. Though there were a lot of official talking heads, I'm not that I'm not impressed by them doing what they did for the film, apparently. But a lot of people are saying it's another nothing burger, though, too. And I'm like, so I didn't miss anything. Okay, next. I think I learned more from letting my Twitter feed videos just play. Just let it play. Right. And I'm like, oh, that's a new one, So good on them to go and get these people together. But I don't have a whole lot of faith in them to suddenly be kind and generous and forthcoming when they have allowed people to literally die under these different oppressions of they experience something, suddenly they get threatened, or they committed suicide because they're so stressed or they're so isolated. I mean, people I've known never settled down because they just had this thing playing in their head. They know what they experience is real, but everybody's laughing at them. They got these government, people calling them, and just so many things. So I just don't have. I guess I'm a different sort, Jeff. I'm like, yeah, okay, great. I have a hard time jumping on the bandwagon of folks who got involved in this whole conversation because they were bored during COVID lock-ins, lockdowns, whatever they call them again. I forgot. But, it's just like, I get it, I'm glad there's more people at the party, but those of us that have been in this, we've already been through this so many times, and the disappointment is thick. So, pardon me if I don't get up for the standing O for oh yay, but yeah,
I haven't seen it either.
Oh, good.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen it either. I mean, I've got a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. I don't have time to go to the movies, and my wife's not going to let me go watch an alien movie anyway, like this. So, but I'm definitely going to see it as soon as it hits, Amazon Prime or whatever. I'll definitely check it out at that point because I'm just interested to see it. There's a lot of things. I watch a lot of paranormal stuff. That doesn't mean I believe it all, but it fascinates me. And there's something from everything that you can learn from, at least.
True.
So I want to watch it, just to see it. But I'm kind of with you. I'll believe it when I see it, type thing.
Yeah.
So I'm with you 100%. But
yeah, I honestly don't know if I'd watch it if it starts streaming, if it hasn't already. I'm more focused again. It's like that. What are those crumbs? I didn't see anybody running out in the street saying they admitted it. So I don't know. I don't think it's going to have a whole lot of weight on much. So
yeah, I mean, just speaking of crumbs, I mean, just these films, the congressional talk, everything that we're hearing, it's just like they're throwing us little bits, little pieces, little crumbs. Now there's a lot of chatter that Trump's going to be the guy, that he's going to be the guy that's going to finally talk about it and reveal the biggest secret in mankind's history.
Yeah.
I'm not buying it. What do you think?
There's so many different sides to that coin. It's like, do you find him to be generous and forthcoming or not? He's had this information for a long time, according to a lot of official people, and he hasn't stepped forward with it. So why not? And why haven't former presidents? Jimmy Carter was like, I'm going to do it. But he didn't, So I just, I think, unfortunately, he might risk what Kennedy was risking, because that's the rumor of what got him killed. So I don't know.
Heard that as well.
I don't know. I mean, would he drop a cookie? Maybe. I don't know if he'd give the whole enchilada. I don't think he could, because my understanding, it's like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing in that whole arena. For a secret like that to be held so consistently, it's a longer held office. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's a longer held power deep in there, that they're not letting that go. And they're talking about giving them amnesty and all this. I'm like, well, what did you do? That you're, we'll talk if you don't prosecute. Hold on. What did you guys do? Did you let people like in the millions die of cancer because you had the cure from some of the reverse engineered stuff? Or are you guys zipping around the galaxy having a ball on our dime? What did you do? So did you sell us out and know that they're taking people's souls? Dude, I just, the list runneth long.
Right.
So,
and there's all the people that say that in 1954 that Dwight D. Eisenhower made this alien pact.
yeah.
I'm sure you've heard that story too. So that it goes all the way back to Eisenhower. I don't know. It just seems like they're giving us little bits and pieces, but it's definitely it's being talked about a lot more on the world stage than it was. So I was just curious what your thoughts were of that.
No, and you'd asked about Steven Spielberg. I have it on pretty decent authority that everybody's been suspicious that he's had conversations with government types to get some of the understandings, and I have it on pretty good authority that he has. So what is he going to reveal in there? Didn't look like it was very friendly fully. That from the trailer I saw, I that little back of the throat clicking was disturbing. It looked like a possession going on, if it was against her will. Anything that goes against your will doesn't feel good to me, because that's I've known and seen people who have had recollections of that type of scenario with different beings taking over. I had one that tried to do it, and it wasn't human, but it was alien. It was a gray alien being, and it's just disgusting, And I haven't been abducted, and this is before I even got started really in this field. I had just started going to a UFO meeting with people who had experiences that had been abducted. I'd seen massive UFOs where they were responding to me, but I hadn't been abducted. And, it didn't take long. I had black unmarked helicopters hanging over my place, and then grays filled my apartment. I woke up, I'm walking around talking like, what are you doing here? What is this? And then I had a scenario where it felt like a dream, but it was really real, where a gray stepped into me, and I'm like, whoa, what is this? It said, don't worry, whenever you want to take back over, I'll just step to the side. And it's like, let's practice that. And I'm like, no.
No thanks.
In Jesus' name, get out. And I felt the black eyes looking out of my eyes. Oh, I get chills about it, even thinking about it. I'm like, no, get out and get out now. And Jesus' name. And it left. But that control, why do they need it? Why do they need it? And here it's being portrayed in that film. I thought I heard too that the main actress, I forget her name, that she's going to be in the next congressional hearing on this conversation.
Really? I haven't heard that.
Has she experienced something? Yeah, I don't know if it's true. I think it was like a post, and I'm like, get out of Dodge. But hey, or is it just a marketing ploy? I don't know.
I'm gonna check it out. Like I said, whenever just the curious nature of me is gonna check it out just for that reason. So
Spielberg, gotta see Spielberg movies, of course. I will see sci-fi. I love sci-fi. So.
Oh yeah, me too. Huge sci-fi nerd. Anything sci-fi.
Yes, same.
Well, what's happening for 2026 for Heidi Hollis? What are you working on for next year?
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, I'm finishing up that. This is the longest it's ever taken me to write a book, and it's because there were others involved who were going to be part of it and then chickened out or backed out for other reasons, official capacity like reasons. Let's just say that. So yeah, it's taken me time, and I'm glad it took the time that it did because I learned more than I ever anticipated. And that book got so big, I had to split it into 2 books. so I'm like, okay, so I'm going to get that out as soon as possible. I'm not going to go, and stress on it much more and just be done with it. And then I'll finish that second book. And then there's always like potential television projects to have my own. I mean, that's been going on for a couple of decades too. I think I might have shared on the last episode that a lot of these different networks are like, wow, you know so much, but
Right.
we can't have a woman lead. Can you teach a man everything you know? I'm like, no. So it's like, so I just wouldn't go that route. So yeah, there's always talk about doing something like that. And then of course I'm part of Coast to Coast AM. I have my podcast on there called Dark Becomes Light. It is on hiatus, but the shows are all free. And I do the news. I contribute to the news for Coast to Coast AM regularly. So yeah, it's kind of cool to be part of the show that like started all of these shows.
Absolutely.
I don't know if people know that history. Like, there were no shows before Coast to Coast AM that talked about the strange stuff. And Art Bell, he was the first host. He starred on X-Files. I mean, it like Ancient Aliens, the longest running television series. George Norrie, hello, he's the main person on there, and it's like and that some of the younger generations sometimes I say, well, I'm part of Coast to Coast AM. Well, what is that? I'm like, well, it's you can thank them for you getting the interest that you do because
Absolutely.
Millions and millions of listeners still. It's always in the top 10 talk radio shows in this country, so it hasn't slipped in the rankings. It's still big, so. It's pretty cool.
Yep. I talked about in our last episode, you're an OG. I mean, you were talking about this stuff before Jason and Grant made the paranormal mainstream.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of cool. I know Jason's a cool guy. Very nice. But, I guess, people are like, well, how could you be so bold to do it? And I'm like, it was never a question. I think having been raised in a haunted house kind of prepared me. Because it wasn't something we were ashamed of to talk about. Like, whoa, did you see that thing? Yeah, I'm glad that we got out of that room before something went flying. So it was just kind of a natural next step. I'd seen strange things my whole life, and when it escalated to be something else, I just started talking about it. And so it was always just something that you do. So when I hear people say that to me, like, wow, you're really, wow, I don't know how you would do that and use your real name. Like, my dad tried to get me to use a pen name or something. Like, Dad, you had no sons. So, and Heidi Hollis sounds really good. I'm going to make that last name famous, and little did I know I would, but, and then to learn that he was military intelligence, a senior non-commissioned officer for NORAD. What? Did I not know you, man? You raised me, like, how? So
I think people, right?
Dude, so like when you got these people who are intelligence, that, they are never X. I was raised with this guy who never shared that. I didn't know. And it's so funny. He once said to me, what are the odds that I am who I am? And my daughter goes and writes books about it because I got interrogated by military people. Military abductions, I call them MILABs, MILABS. Anybody who wants to look into that. I got interrogated and questioned by military guys. And this is so funny because my dad didn't say anything. I'm like, Dad, the weirdest thing. Put it in my first book, He never said a thing. And many years later, when he's very retired, in his 70s, well, what are the odds that I am who I am and my daughter goes and writes books about it? I'm like, and then he said, If I knew they were taking you, I would have called them up and told them to knock it off. What? How would you know who to call? Oh,
that's refreshing, right?
dude, I'm like, how would you know? What, like, wow. He's like, they probably thought I told you something. I'm like, told me what? And that's when he's like, well, he was the guy in charge of his NORAD station. He was the guy. He only answered to Cheyenne Mountains facility. That was it. I just like, my brain did the boom, 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 boom. What? I'm like, you're everything I'm like fighting against to, put this information out there. So yeah, my lab guys, I had no idea. I didn't know. I didn't know. So you got nothing out of me. Took me in my pajamas and questioned me. The rumor is that that's all a mind game, that they don't actually take people.
Psychological warfare type thing.
Well, that it's the aliens that are putting that thought in your head, because our government wouldn't do that. My dad admitted it. So it's not nothing. So yeah. So I just I don't have a whole lot of faith in the system, Jeff.
I understand. Neither do I.
Yeah.
That story has always fascinated me, and that's something I may cover in the future. So
yeah,
I know you can't talk about it as much, but I can. So
anyway. Yes, for sure. Yeah.
But anyway, Heidi, it is always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see what you do next and what you got going for 26.
Yes.
Thanks so much.
I want to tell people, go to HeidiHollis.com, and all of my social media is at one Heidi Hollis, and I have a comic strip called theoutlanderscomic.com, so check that out as well.
Heidi Hollis.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Heidi.
It was fun.
Thank you for listening to the Politics, Prepping, and Paranormal Podcast. Your source for real news and analysis on politics, prepping, paranormal, conspiracy theories, and the volatile state of the world we live in. Tune in next week and every week for a new episode, and stay safe, stay healthy, and stay vigilant.